of the time, moms will wait for their loved ones to leave the room so that they can cross over, because that's not the memory they want to leave behind. They have the right to change their minds. Dads do it too. Dads wait until, their wives are gone before they will cross over. Unless you are comfortable and you guys already talked about your, death plan. And if you really love them, yeah, you can pass in front of them. I've seen it both ways. I've seen it. Back to my woman with breast cancer. So I cleared everyone, the petting. Family was doing the petting. The wife was right there petting her as well. If that was me, I'd be like, I already left you my husband and kid here. I wouldn't, I'm not like that, but I do like that, And so I sent everyone out, and we think that they're unconscious. No, they are conscious. They are processing. And I told her, you are such a brave woman. You taught me what selflessness was. I've seen the compassionate act that you had for your son. You wanted to meet the woman that was going to fulfill your shoes. And I said, now it's time for you to go so that you can watch your son for wherever you are going. And you're going to be able to help him more so on the other side than you can do here as he watches you suffer with cancer. She said, I know. Weren't you unconscious? And I said, well, it's time for you to go. I said, your friends are out of the room. Your husband's out, or your ex-husband's out of the room, and your child is out of the room. I will sit in here quietly so that you can pass, and you're not alone. Okay. Thank you. It's not that clear, but they're groaning, they're moaning, and those are what she moans out. You have to have that listening ear to hear them. And she transitioned, she changed, and their family was like, oh, that CNA's been in there for a while. How long does it take to change someone? But I've already controlled the room. It wasn't bright. I put on relaxing music. I put on a nightlight and made the room dark. And I gave her my calm energy to know that she was okay. And I don't kick family out. I let them start coming in so that they can mirror my behavior to be with their loved one that is dying. And once they understood what I was doing, I got up, I walked out, went and, talked to the other patients. And then, I came in and she was in her last final breathing moments. So I said, this is the time now. If there's anything you want to say to her, because she's going to go. And they look at me like, this lady's crazy. And I walk out. 5 minutes later, that call light goes on, and guess what? She's gone. I give them the opportunity to say goodbye. Or the person that is dying, I give them the opportunity to tell me what it is that they need to tell me. Spiritually, I've had a psychiatrist psychiatrist one time grilled me on his deathbed. Okay. He was asking me where he was going to go. I don't know. But let me tell you a story, is what I told him. These are stories that I know, so I'm going to tell you a story. And that calmed him down. For a psychiatrist, you know, like living off of ice cream and milkshakes, you know, like, I don't know, who's the doctor here? I'm kidding. But he was scared of death. I found his weakness. He was scared of death. My favorite one is a Catholic priest. I took care of him for years. And I went in, and he's retired, of course, and I was getting him ready, and he was like, "What is your religion, my girl?" I'm a heathen. I was like, "Let me ask you a question." Okay. If you could do it all over again, what would you do? And he was like, "Not a Catholic priest." I said, "Well, what would you have been?" Okay, I can't say this word, I'm going to mess it up, so I apologize to people, but Episcopalian? And I was like, why? Because I could have had a family. I could have had a relationship. I dedicated my life to a being, and I don't even know if I believe in it. Whoa. And this is coming from a Catholic priest. Did God's work his whole life. And that's what he craved. Love. Touch. Intimacy. And I'm not talking about intimacy like between a man and a woman. Just having an intimacy with time, when we are dying, they are processing. We call it processing. And that's where a lot of the times where us family are petting them. Or they're in pain. Or they just kind of grimace a little bit. And a lot of the times when I notice when they release whatever it is that they're holding on to, they have a tear in their eye. And a lot of the time when I'm with my patients that are passing, there is a tear in one of their eyes. And that is how they release. Is that tear. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is. And I'm not talking about, like a long tear or anything. It's a little tear that is in their eye. And then the families come in and they're hurt because we're now left. And only one out of all the deaths that I have done, I have touched more decedents in my life than I have healing. So when I seem like I'm closed off, it's because I carry those people. I carry those people with me. I feel their energy. And when I touch a living person, it's hard for me to feel that connection. But I am a living being. I am a human being. I understand that. So self-love, self-care, self-respect is what I really have to rely on. And I do ceremonies and I do sweats for people. And then Grandma comes. I actually have her here on the altar. She's Grandma Wallace. And my spirit name, I'm named after a grandma that came from another planet. And when she gave me her name, she became Uchi Wakiyan Grandma Helen. And her message to all of us is love one another, take care of one another, and respect one another. In order to do that, we have to love ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. And most of all, we have to respect ourselves. And I leave that space for the death and dying. And to me, death is beautiful. There is a beauty in death. Things we're going to do in our life as a woman is give birth or sleep. And what connects us as we talk to A.I.M, when we say that word is, we're all related. We're also talking about the animal kingdom, the creepy crawlers, the flying birds. They have life and death. The female brings life. They too die. And we use them in our spiritual life. They become ancestors. That's the beauty. Now for the human part.
How's that? Leslie. I have so many things I want to say in response, and I'm going to let them perhaps come from the audience rather than from me. But I did really want to honor that aspect of ending and of grief, and that I just want to name that while our loved one is gone, when they leave the body, that what is happening and what is part of our grief process is learning how that relationship has changed. So yes, we can no longer see our loved one in the body that has carried them for as long as it carried them, but we still have a relationship with them. And for some of us, that may be a very visceral, real relationship where they're showing up and talking to us. And for some of us, that might be in the stories we tell, or in the way that we notice that, oh wow, I hold my hand in this way that's kind of like how my mother talked, right? That we start to notice these people within ourselves, within the ways that we ourselves walk in the world. And it is an incredible gift that they give us to allow us to have them carry on through our lives. And so as painful as our grief process can be, it is also a transformation of continuance, a transformation, a realization, an unfolding of that life as it continues through us. I had a whole plan for what I was going to say, and this was not it. What I wanted to talk about was being good ancestors. As Leslie has brought, actually many of our speakers have mentioned death today, and it's something that I notice in conversation when people are brave and willing and bold enough to name that this is temporary. And not only is this temporary, we don't know when it's going to end. And that one of the ways that I walk in my life is with death as my companion, right? That every day I ask myself, if I were to die today, have I lived the life that I want to live? Would I be okay with stepping away right now? And sometimes the answer is really hard to face. But in a daily practice of asking death, if you come for me today, am I okay? If you come for me today, am I in right relation with my family? If you come for me today, have I put all my affairs in order? And that's something that I want to talk to you about today. That I know many of us here have thought deeply about what we're leaving for future generations. What gifts am I leaving? How am I treating the planet? How am I walking on this earth in a way that is gentle and full of love? And there's that part of our legacy, right? There's that part of the ancestral gift that we offer to future generations. The teachings we give, the hug, the kind word, right? That these are all parts of our legacy. The other side that I want to name is that we also, in a very practical way, leave a mess. Because often we don't think about the fact that we're going to die. And I'm perhaps looking at the younger people in the room, because I think the older we get, the more we pay a little bit of attention to this. Not all of us. But I was just thinking, I just heard naming of clutter, right? If I die tomorrow, who's going to deal with all my stuff, right? If I die tomorrow, do I know where I'm going to be buried? If I die tomorrow, is my son going to be grieving me and having to figure out how to pay for my funeral? These are things to think think about now, and I get very fired up about this. I know Leslie has seen this. I have seen this multiple times. Families who have a right to be grieving and integrating, who are stuck trying to figure out, how am I going to pay to have my loved one's body taken care of? Yeah. And it is one more thing to put on your to-do list, but it is really important because it is a gift to those who are left behind. And it's so important. Go talk to a funeral director. It's free. Most of them will sit down and look at your stuff with you, right? And you just go through what you need to do. And I've been working in end-of-life care for 12 years now, and I've done most of this, but it's an ongoing process. Some people call it death tending, right? Where I have written my advance directive. If I can't speak for myself, I have named who I want to speak for me. Those people, in theory, remember where the paperwork is, and I have talked to them about what I want. But I'm still here and living and growing, and that changes over time. So every year, in theory, I'm sitting down and looking again at my wishes and having those conversations again. To die in right relationship with our loved ones takes thought and effort. And I don't want to put a heavy weight on you. If you do it at all, it's better than not having, so one of the stories I think of is a family I knew, their loved one was dying in hospice, and he was already at the point of not being able to communicate, and all they had to go on how to navigate his care was, if I can't wipe my ass, I don't want to live anymore. Right? If these conversations are not happening with our loved ones, we have to go on what we think might be the right, what we think might be the thing that they wanted, right? And also, sometimes different family members have different ideas about that, about what it was that mom would have wanted. Because as you were mentioning, Leslie, sometimes we project our own, I'm not wearing feathers, we project our own shit into the situation, right? And I think it is so important, I really like that you brought this up, that it is a gift, if we are attending to someone who is dying, it is a gift to them for us to leave our ego at the door and to listen. And to be as open-hearted as possible to remember and to ask, what do you need? What do you want? And if they can't communicate, to do our very best to find in our knowings, in our communications, what the right care is. Because at the point when someone is dying, it is not about us anymore. That process is for them, that process is sacred. And I want to encourage all of us to think about how we can show up in a meaningful way. And I'm straying away from our own death, which is really what I wanted to focus on today. Just to think about not only what am I leaving as a gift to the world, but what am I leaving that might be complicated? And can I do anything about it? Right? And sometimes it's going to find the person who's the death doula or the funeral director and saying, can you help guide me through this? Right? Because it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And people know about this. The hospice nurses know about it. If you have a deaf friend, they will have some thoughts on where to start or who to talk to. But my encouragement is that you think about it. And with that in mind, I'd actually like to take a moment to do a little bit of a guided practice. Please only join in if you feel comfortable. But I'd just like to invite us to take a moment. I'm not going to surprise you with anything. Let me just say, I am going to guide you in a little thinking about impermanence, about your own impermanence. I'm not going to offer anything, I'm not trying to scare you at all. This is gentle and loving. So the two things I do in my life is I do a lot of death-related things. I'm known as, in my circles, as the safe person to talk to about death. But I also do a lot of teaching and meditation, and a lot of the work that I do involves the intersection of those two things, whether it's providing contemplative support to people who are dying or people who are grieving, or whether it's actually helping people contemplate their own death. So we're going to touch on that very gently. I promise I will be kind. But first I just want to offer a place of softness. So if it feels okay, if you want to close your eyes or lower your gaze, just want to invite all of us to soften into our bodies a little bit. Maybe noticing the sensation of the body moving. Noticing those places where we might be holding tension, or where we're feeling maybe a little bit of possibility of softening, of relaxing. And then I'd like to invite you to bring your attention to the fact that we have weight, that we're connected to the earth via the pull of gravity. This is something that I find really comforting. It's not something we think about very much. But those contact points, if you're entering into a meditative space and you're thinking about, my feet are on the floor, my rear is in the seat, there's a sense that we're being held by the earth. I think of gravity as an expression of the earth's love. Our bodies, the pieces of our bodies came from the earth and the stars. But in this moment, I'm going to talk about the earth. We are of the earth, and she loves us so much that she holds us to her at all times. We never worry that we're going to fly off into space, right? Because we are always held. The fact that we can sit in a chair and not float away, the fact that we walk on the earth, is a symbol of the earth's love. It is a symbol of our belonging. And we are held in love. And one day our bodies will return to the earth. But right now, most of us in this room are in bodies. I think it's most of us. And I'd like to invite you into some appreciation of that body as we're held in love, we're connected to the earth. We have each been in the body that we are inhabiting for a number of years, and it's carried us. It's a sacred vessel that has carried our spirit, our consciousness. And I invite you to take a moment to just feel into that body, these feet. We have feet that have carried us since we were very, very small. What a wonderful thing to have feet and hands and organs and these bodies that more or less function. Very quirky. And we can appreciate that too. This incredible complexity and uniqueness of each body, of our body which is ours for this lifetime, as long as it's going to carry us. And just take a moment to appreciate all the ways that our bodies support us through this experience. Our senses which are just so rich with aliveness, right? And, oh my gosh, I can smell things and hear things because I have this body that allows me to interact with the earth. So inviting in that gratitude, that love for this human experience. And in that fullness, I'd also like you to hold the knowing that this is impermanent, that one day this body will be a corpse. One day this body will go back to the earth. How wonderful that we have this body. Right now, we are still in our bodies. But in this tender space, I'd like to invite you to imagine that today is your last day on Earth. If it's more comfortable, you can imagine the starships are coming down tonight. But none of us are leaving woodland altars. And I invite you to gently think about, what am I leaving behind if I don't go home today? Is there anything in particular that comes to mind that feels really important? Is there something unfinished? Is there something beautiful? If I don't go home after tonight, if I go elsewhere, if I die, if I ascend, what am I leaving behind? And just take a moment to notice what's happening in the body. Maybe take a moment to breathe here. Just a few breaths. We won't stay in this space very long. Just a moment of noticing what's true for me right now. Now I invite you to notice that you are still breathing, your heart is beating, blood is flowing through your veins, and that you're still connected to Earth. And from this tender, contemplative space, I invite us all to imagine roots reaching into the earth, to better receive that love that the earth has for us, allowing our roots to grow out or down or both in whatever way. And anything that needs to release, we can release into the earth, into her loving embrace for her to compost and turn into something else. Letting go of anything we don't need right now. And then sucking up that love through our roots and receiving all the earth has to offer right now. And if you like, you can connect to the star, to the cosmos as our humans, as a bridge between heaven and earth, and letting the love of the cosmos flow down and fill our hearts. And when you're ready, and it feels like the right time, you can return your attention to our shared space. I think that's what I came here to say. Should we open it up to questions?
question is about morphine and how it can block your third eye and your crown of your head, and that for her experience on morphine has made her deathly ill, made her sick, vomit. I'm not a chemist. So yes, we can be allergic to drugs that, is being used in the dying process. I'm not a doctor, but doctors can prescribe other drugs. And the other drugs might be hydromorphone. It may I think it depends on the individual. And I was going to say this story earlier, and I didn't. I had a person come in, and he was concerned about drugs, and he wanted to have a natural death. Okay? And when the dying process started happening, and he started having terminal agitation, the family couldn't handle it anymore and brought this patient to us. And it was our job and our responsibility to keep him safe and to let him have the natural dying process. Now, he was tortured. He was tortured because the pain was not controlled. It was not controlled. So, everything in this room, we are related to. That chair, you are related to it. How? Because it comes from the earth. I'm different from most people because I think outside of the box, okay? Maybe morphine's not the drug for you. Maybe you need A.I.M. It's another drug that just helps calm the nervous system. Is there something natural? Well, if you are a geek and read about death from other cultures, terminal agitation is something that you cannot be controlled. Pain, when you're dying in pain, cannot be controlled. So when I say it's up to the person, when we're having pain, this is my perspective only. My perspective is that you are holding on to something that you do not want to let go or face. So we're going to have pain. Correct. So your third eye and your crown was already blocked. Because people still process when they are using a chemical drug. They're still processing in a spiritual form. Now, my belief, I don't want to say belief, but the way I see things and the way that I think of medicine, it was part of this earth and it has a spirit. Everything has a spirit. That morphine was a plant at one point. Even if it is a synthetic plant, you can still pray to the spirit of that drug. It has a root. It has a spirit. Even though it has been processed into another form, it still was a plant on this earth, or a mineral, or a chemical that was made by earth. So you can pray to that drug, even though it's man-made. You can still pray to that drug to help you in the way that you need help with. Yes, we have allergies. There's people that can't take morphine. There's people that can't take A.I.M. It has a reverse effect, and yes, we do see those. but there's other drugs that the doctors will.
But I don't hear you mention any other herbs. Is there any other herbs? There are several. I'm gonna talk about that.
So,
That's just not in your page.
because I work in a clinical setting, I can't, I can't watch a natural death when they are suffering. And for me, I can't keep your loved one safe when I have 8 other patients that are crossing over. I don't have the time to sit there and make sure that they're not getting out of bed or that they are screaming in pain. And when they're asking for something, we're going to give them something, because that's not my experience of being in death. There's some women that can go out there and have a natural birth,